Down, I said, don't let me down. I won't let you down. I said, don't let me down. I won't let you down. And we'll all hold hands and drink to each other's good health. And we'll all make plans to thank the Lord that we're boys. And the more.
So one of the best things about this brilliant sport of rugby union is the rugby trip. We put out on socials today what people's favourite Six Nations trip is. Plenty to choose from then. But it's not all fun and games. You went on a particularly daunting tour in the late 80s to New Zealand. Any recollections of that?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough over the years going on plenty of tours. But the 88 tour of New Zealand, we'd just come off the back of a Triple Crown that season. I think it was time for us to prove ourselves against the best in the world. They won the World Cup in 87. So we were going over the 88, fresh with a lot of sort of confidence and optimism. And we played 8 games. We won 2, drew 1, lost 5. We lost to Waikato, we lost to Wellington, and then our third game was against Otago, and they were the actual New Zealand champions at the time. And we beat them, okay? The captain of Otago was Mike Brewer. And I can remember after the game, we were kind of, I'll explain why, we were a little bit sidetracked, but he was making his post-match speech as captain, obviously in all black. I think he went to play in Sale and coach Sale or something like that. But he said after the game, to my players, I have to be honest and say that I don't think we could have played any worse than we did today. And to the Welsh team, I don't think you could have played any better. And that was the kind of the Kiwi mentality around things. The reason we were sidetracked is the day before the game, myself and Glenn Webb went out and bought what's it called, a dribble glass. So it's like a little shot glass, and it's got a bit of design on it, but in the etching, there's holes. And we've got one of our committee who was sort of standing over there, kind of behind where Mike Brewer was making his speech. Typical WIU kipper tie on, and you could see him we were like that. He's talking, we look at him like that, and you could see him like this, whiskey, like that. Nodding to the chat like that, and a few dribbles on the tie, and the next thing, over it goes again. Tie is getting wetter like that, right? And every time it got to the point where we're all going, oh, and as he lifted his glass, he's like, oh. Next, he started looking to the glass like that. It was like, oh, because it's right underneath, you can't see it. And after about another 5 times, he realised that something was up. But the mentality around the Kiwis, we used to have the morning after a game, you'd have the New Zealand Sun newspaper delivered under the door of the hotel room, straight to page 3. Not the same kind of paper, but on the back page they'd have the ratings of the players, the Welsh team. And I'll be honest, by the end of the tour, I was quite a little bit cocky because I was getting a regular 3. Right? Jonathan Davies would get a 5, maybe the occasional 6. That's a superstar. And there were some players in our group who were getting 0, for 80 minutes for rugby. And that's how brutal it was. So we come to the test match. We played New Zealand Christchurch. I lost, just in case you guessed, that was the other game we won. No, we lost 56-0. And the second game was in Eden Park. Our first game I played 6. Second game I was picked at 8. And I think I was only 22 or 23 at the time. I think it was part of the WIU's development plan of trying to teach me how to get absolutely stuffed in 2 different positions. So the number 8 for New Zealand was Wayne Shelford, a total icon of New Zealand rugby. So after the game, he came in and he wanted to swap kit. So I'm like, all right then, Wayne. After you get off your knees, a bit embarrassing. Come on, you can have it. So anyway, swap kits with him. So I go back to the hotel room, just quite nonchalant, you know. I think, yeah, I got his kit and got in the room, and I was sharing a room with Tim Fovell from Aberavon, and I was like, as soon as the door shut, I was like, open my bag up, put in Wayne Shelford's shirt on, it's like a little kid. The seam was down here, right? And we changed the whole kit, so next thing you know, and put in his shorts on. I'm like, Tim, I said, look, this guy is Maori's a monster. He is huge. And look where his shoulders finish. And I said, but, you know, for a big bloke, the shorts, look at how tight they are on me. And Tim Fovell looked at me, goes, Roland, try putting your leg in the other hole. I was like, I pulled out. Jesus, I was both of them in the same one. Like, but yeah, like that was a brutal trip for us. And a lot of things came from that, as far as the main thing came from it. And we went on tour in 1990 to Namibia and won every game. So we obviously learnt to go to better places.
So rugby was still amateur in those days. So was it a fact that they were far ahead of us in professionalism? Or why are New Zealand as good as they are? Because we've been professional now since the mid-90s, and we still haven't caught up, have we? No,
look, culture is a big thing. You know, yeah, at that time they were miles ahead of us because, you know, I don't know, I'm not saying professionalism, but they were maybe employed by companies that would give them the time off to train, so they were together, you know, through the week. You know, so kind of it was part of the perks of where they were working. Some of them were doing adverts on the TV, so there was a lot of ways to be able to keep your amateur status with a good boss in your work, and be prepped and be prepared. Look, but the culture is so different. You know, like there's no confusion there when the baby's born. You know, that baby's lifted up and they're going to play for New Zealand, male or female. That's the mentality, that you lift up to the moon and say, you play for New Zealand, you know, and that's the different psyche that they got, you know. So that was more of the brutal side of touring. But I remember I got two stories, if I can indulge. Neath at the time, because we had good crowds and we were back in the 80s and we were winning well, and they ended up giving us a tour to Florida. So, you know, we played against something like
hotbed of rugby.
Yeah, we played against Disney World 15. No, but we played against like Florida, Miami, and whatever, right? And we ended up after the game, and we played up in Orlando. And after the game, there was no change rooms or nothing. I think it was like 100 points we'd won. And we had to go down to a bar, and it was all just in your kit, and just jump into a swimming pool. You know, it's just even better, isn't it? So you're full kit in the pool, washing yourself down a bit. Just dirt, no sweat. No, it was all right, the game. And I remember Carl Bridgewater from Trimsara and winger, and he was so excited he couldn't believe what was going on, and he had one of those, you know, the proper cameras, you know, the zoom on it like that, and he's walking around the pool, he's like taking photos of all the boys in there, and we're all in our Neath kit jumping around. And as he was doing that, Stuart Evans walked behind him, right, and shoved him, right, and I mean pushed him like that. And he went into the water, like, and the last thing, and we were all like, oh, no. I could see his arms in the air, just his camera, and then, like, the last thing that dropped through was the camera, gone. And he got out. I've never seen a guy so angry, right? He was absolutely livid. He got to the side of the pool, like, he was, you know, like, distraught, camera there, dripping water, and he goes like that, who the hell had the pushed me into the pool? Who the hell did that? That's a disgrace. And Stuart went like that, oh, it was me. And his car was like that. Oh, you're mad, you are. Oh, you're mad. Oh,
benefits of being 20 plus stone.
Oh my God, yeah. So, yeah, that was that. And I got a tour that never happened, which I was in the police at the time in Cardiff. And Neath were going to play Greystones. It was the Ireland weekend. So they go on to play on a Friday night, and then the international on the Saturday and come back. So they went from the ferry in Fishguard to Rosslea and all that stuff. I couldn't. They were going on a Thursday morning, like a 3 a.m, boat over. I couldn't. I was in court at 9 o'clock that morning. I got to court in Barry, and the guy didn't turn up, right? So that was my day. So I zoomed back down and ended up catching the next ferry, the 3 in the afternoon one, right? So this is Thursday afternoon. So I'm standing, it's packed now, because that's probably the most busy one, people having a Thursday, Friday into a game. And it was packed, so I was just standing there, leaning on this glass, as I'm leaning like that. And the boat moved off the quay wall in Fishguard and out it goes around the breakwater. And I'm like that. As soon as I get outside, the glass opens and a bloke pops his head out and looks straight at me and goes like that, "Duty free, sir?" And I'm like that. And I'm looking and thinking, oh my God, I am actually standing in the front of this queue. I thought everybody else was just standing there. So panicking, I'm like, what do my father used to drink? In my mind thinking, "Teacher's whiskey, please." Like I look around, do you hear that? Teacher's whiskey. Anyway, I have this thing. I knew they got a long bottle, haven't they? Mm-hmm. So I just sat down now, next thing you know, tip just a little bit of whiskey, put a lid back on. Right. We're moving out now, and a little bit more whiskey, put a lid back on. Next thing I heard, could Mr. Phillips please come to the reception, please? Your wallet. I'd lost my wallet and it dropped on my pocket and somebody picked it up. Then, ladies and gentlemen, to announce the crossing is too rough at the moment. So they turned back and came into Fishguard Harbour. So we'd gone out half hour and come back. So I'm still drinking the whiskey like that. And I say, "Will Mr. Phillips please come and get his wallet?" Lost it again, right? And then he was like, "Roland, come to reception, get your wallet and put it safe," right? So anyway, that was that. So I'm drinking, next thing you know, I'm walking up in a cabin, right? And he goes, "Excuse me, sir, when we're working there, you have to get off here, please." So I'm like, oh God. And I was obviously rough. I looked down, there's that much whiskey left in my t-shirt. I was like, "You have to get off here." I said, "Oh my God, where are we?" She goes, "We're in Fishguard, sir." I was like, "Oh my God, you haven't left yet?" She goes, "Yes, sir, we've been over and back. This is Friday." So I was so out of it. They put me in bed and I ended up taking the boat to Ireland and back. Got home and went home to watch a rugby. Yeah, so not one of my better rugby trips.
We've been on a American trip to New York. I was playing for South Wales Police at the time. And like yourself, I was never a policeman, but I played rugby for them. And when we were out there, we were treated, if Manchester United were out there, they wouldn't have been treated as big as celebrities. Because in the minds of the locals in New York, we played this extreme sport as they see rugby, and we were British cops, and they thought that was brilliant. And I remember being in a nightclub and some sort of supermodel comes up, blonde hair, stacked female. Yeah. Okay. Says, so are you a British cop? And I was, and I'd always denied it to anybody because I don't need that hassle. Yeah. So if anybody asks, no, I'd play for them, I'm not a cop. So this is what I said to her. Yeah. And she's like, oh, and just walks away. So then 2 minutes later, another one comes across and, so are you a British cop? I said, hello. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. And that trip, I've been arrested a bunch of times. So I'll tell another story later. I've been arrested for being drunk and disorderly. I've been arrested for being drunk and incapable, which is basically you're so drunk you're incapable of being disorderly. Yeah. And I think I've been arrested 13 times. Only once anything has ever stuck, and that was in New York on this rugby tour. I got caught short, about 3 o'clock in the morning. I got caught short. I needed to spend a penny, so I thought I'd find a quiet place in New York. It was Times Square. Yeah. Actually, 3 o'clock in the morning, there wasn't anybody about, so got my old boy out. Within seconds, I heard over my shoulder, "Sir, will you please sheath your weapon?" As I looked across, and there's a guy on horseback, like an enormous baseball bat of a baton, and obviously armed. And I thought, fucking.
Well, one of us has got a bat.
Sheath my weapon. In America, they're fucking nuts. Like, do you think I've got a weapon? I said, I've started, so I got to finish. And I don't think they got mastermind over there. So New York's finest, not New York's finest sense of humour, I can tell you. So he's, I put it away. I was all right. Okay, I finished. Do you know what the offence is? Do you know what the offence in this country if you're caught spending a penny? Do you know what the offence is?
In public or in the
Yeah, it used to be a cop, as you should know.
Yeah, that's a decent exposure.
Decent exposure. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get a rap for this. In America, you don't have to go to court and that. We just give you a ticket, and that is a conviction.
Yeah.
So you're convicted of that offence. And the offence isn't indecent exposure. It is urinating and or masturbating in public. So that is the one offence I've actually done for.
Did you look down and go like that? There's no piss there, is there? So it's obviously...
yeah. But the I get is the and. In a circus, if I could do both. So of all the things I've been arrested for, there's only one I've ever been convicted for, and that's being a pissing wanker.
Yeah. Masturbated in public. Oh, it's class. Yeah, well, I've had plenty of trips. You know, some are memorable. Some are not. You know, obviously the island one wasn't, because I don't remember anything of it. Like, yeah.
So I asked on the socials what people's, because my feel is out of the Six Nations, if you're not Welsh, I honestly think Cardiff is the best trip, because you've got everything is based around that Millennium Stadium. Everything, you've got Chip Shop Alley where you can see some bird getting fingered at 2:00 in the morning. You've got all those pubs and nightclubs, everything surrounding the Millennium Stadium. Yeah. But out of the rest, which would be your favoured trip?
I think Ireland. Ireland was good because it's not so much, you know, like Cardiff's awesome because, you know, you jump off the train or the get out the car, whatever it is, it's right there. It's right in the middle of town, and 2 minutes and you're in the middle of all the action. But Ireland was very. They look after you. You know, they know they want to have that proper sort of post match all together. Have a few beers and have a bit of a laugh, and they really looked after us out in Lansdowne Road at the time. Look, we lost up in Murrayfield when I played up there, and that didn't seem a big, you know, like a big occasion. It was a big occasion, obviously, but the post match wasn't, and things have changed. You know, like before, whenever you were up in Scotland, they'd be piping the haggis in, and you know, and it would be a big ceremony after a game. It's not like that anymore. You know, so I think post match, you know, certainly as Six Nations. Now, I mean, not that obviously I haven't played for years, but everything they're all professionals, so it's all dealt with professionally. And then post the last game, you know, Wales obviously, and some of the players made some headlines that day, you know, the night of the last game. But then they'll relax and you see footage of Ireland have been winning it and those players having a good night. You know, it's like a bit of a moment. Let's relax, let's enjoy. But I think over the Six Nations, it's game on is, you know, the focus. I
do love Dublin, but for me, it's always been Edinburgh. Has been the best trip as a Welsh team, as immortalised, you know, by Max Boyce. Things have changed, though. It's a lot more gentrified up there, a lot more sort of craft ale bars and the old boozers. Yeah. I remember being, as a young lad on tour, some older viewers will remember licensing hours in this country. Nowhere would be open until 11 o'clock on a Sunday. A lot of places close on a Sunday, or they'll have to close at 1 and then reopen in the evening. You'll be up 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday in Leith. And it'll be like a full nudity strip show going on. You've only just drifted into a quiet bar for a pint, and then there's just like a full strip show with people like a Sticky Vicky type inserting things and
urination and or masturbation.
Yeah, urination and or masturbation. So it was those times have changed, and you know, perhaps for the better in some respects. But I've got a soft spot for Edinburgh. I always used to love those trips.
I remember with Neath, when I came back from league and playing for Neath again. Before it went to regional, we'd be playing like the Parker Pen or whatever that competition was, but it'd be the cross-border stuff. And we played Border Raiders. We'd be up Glasgow and Edinburgh as well, but I remember this trip. We had a meeting in Neath Rugby Club at 7 in the morning, and Lynn Jones would have the itinerary for the day, and it was like, meet at 7, bus leaves at 7:15, 7:30, first showing of Twin Towns. Right, so everybody's like, this is 7:30 in the morning watching Twin Towns. Lunch at 12 or whatever, and then 1:15, second showing at Twin Towns, right? And because it was a good, on the bus, it's a good 9-hour journey, innit? We'd have 3 showings of Twin Towns, and it'd be sort of, some people would stick at it, others would be like shaking their heads, and Lynn would be in the front like that. They're watching it.
I said before, people had mobile phones and earphones. You couldn't switch off. You were forced to watch. It's a good film. You don't want to watch it 3 times on a bus trip.
No, but that's, that was it. Then go up, we play the game, and then I think we went up on the Friday, played on the Saturday, and just drove to go the bus straight back. And after the game, like, it was brutal at the time, but that was before Region Rugby and before, like, you were staying in top hotels, and it was, the club wasn't that rich to be able to afford to stay there for 2 nights in a hotel or whatever. But no, they were good character building trips, really.
Yeah, it's every part. And I mentioned Cardiff. I think and the amount of times a lot of people in Wales who haven't even got tickets to the game will just go to Cardiff for that match day atmosphere. I think it's very difficult to beat. There's another arrest story coming up now. It was, and it's kind of topical because it's 20 years since 2005 Grand Slam. It's the first one we won in 27 years, and I think it is your duty as a Welshman to go out and get absolutely ming-monged just to mark the occasion, which is what I did. And when it was a beautiful sunny day, and the feeling and atmosphere in Cardiff, we just knew Wales were going to win.
Yeah.
We knew, no right to, we hadn't won a Grand Slam for 27 years, but we just knew we were going to do it that day, and we did. And I kept up my part of the bargain. I got as drunk as possible, got home on the train, got off in Neath, and there was a thing that I was terrible for doing at the time, that I would I say, hold my pint and go into the toilet.
Yeah.
And my homing beacon would go off, and I said, I'm fucking gone. I'm walking home. And I'd walked as the crow flies from the pub we were in Neath. I was living in Bryncork at the time, and I walked through Caiwern.
Yeah.
And literally as the crow flies. So the telling of this story is from the guy whose house it was the next day. He was sat watching TV, and he thought, what's this fucking idiot doing now? Just walking into his house, walked to his front garden. He's expecting a knock on the door. Walked straight through into his back garden.
Yeah, nice.
And so he came out to see what I was doing, and he could see I was the worse for wear. So he brought me in the house. He did what any true Welshman would do: give me a can of Stella. Yeah. Didn't make matters, and he couldn't get any sense out of me at all. And he didn't want to phone the police. He said, "Look, I'm going to phone the police, just to take you home safely." He couldn't get any sense out of me. As I mentioned earlier, I used to play rugby for South Wales Police.
Yeah.
And there's a few of us who weren't policemen, most of us were policemen. And because of how big that day was, all of them were working. I had tickets to the game.
Oh, yeah.
None of these people had time off to watch the game, leave alone go to it. So I'd been ripping them all week that I'm going to the game, and fuck you go to work. So that evening, they were looking, loads of people got arrested and put in cells that night, and they were running out of cells. They'd run out of cells in Cardiff, they'd run out of cells in Bridgend. So they were looking on the computer system for where, are there any cells available in Neath? So,
no fucking brain cells.
So, no. So they were looking, they got up, Paul James, what the is that? And they got up, yeah, it was me. What's he done? And because you can't be drunk and disorderly on private property.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they caught me on private property.
Yeah.
They had to...
trespassing or...
They put me down as burglary.
Yeah, right.
Even though there's obviously no complaints, so they put me down as burglary. It's another one to add to my list of being arrested for. And what the fucking... Paul James, burglary? What the fuck has he done?
He gets through the bathroom window, did he?
and in the end, they let me go. They kept me in to sober up for a few hours. But connected to my conviction in New York, what I didn't realise is in those cells, and it's a very stressful situation being arrested, and you've got to do something to relieve the stress. What I didn't realise was actually there are cameras in those cells, and there's reasons why there's rubber mattresses and no sheets in there. So
Please tell me this urination. Please tell me. Please.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, don't.
I wouldn't have wanted a cleaning job that next day with all the jellyfish.
Oh,
Thank you.
stop it. Yeah, but look, just to set the record straight, I was a policeman.
Right.
I had joined in 85, and like obviously I wasn't counting the days, but 5 years, 111 days later, I left. And that's when I left to go rugby league. But just sort of PC 715 Phillips I was, which was the time I used to get in for mornings, even though I started at 6. But yeah, I was actually as they described me, in my sort of average. I was very average.
Well, there was a few of you at the time, though. There was Martin Morris.
Yeah.
There was Richie Collins as well.
Bowen, Steve Sutton. We got into a thing now because there's Hugh Williams-Jones, Pee Wee, Colin Hillman. That was a very strong
Sean
team.
Legg.
Yeah, that was at the time they were a very, very good team, very good team. And you had David East, who was the chief constable, and you know, who was also on the Llethley committee, who was massive. So like, if you were like, I don't know, 4'2", but you were one of the best rugby players around, you'd have an extended helmet. No, I mean, it was.
But before the game was professional, I mean, you mentioned all the Welsh ones there.
Yeah.
Wade Dooley, wasn't he a cop as well? England had a lot lot of policemen.
And Ackford.
Paul Ackford, the two.
Dean Richards.
Yeah.
But I ended up, I was only about, I think I was about 23. I was about that age, young, and we went the British police tour, right, I think it was to Bucharest, right, and David East was the chairman of the British Police, and I was obviously South Wales Police. He made me captain, and I remember we had a photograph taken in, I think it was Heathrow Airport, the squad, and I'm just like standing in the back left, because like there was Irish internationals there were Scottish, they were all top international rugby players. Dooley, Ackford. I was the captain, but I was like so like sort of, I'm not saying it didn't feel worthy, but it was like, it's a bit embarrassing in a way. So so everybody's standing there, and there's like the David East, the chairman, empty chair, like that, and I'm not saying there was favouritism, but he was like at the front going, where's my son? Sorry, where's Roland? Where's Roland? Roland, come and sit here. Like it was, yeah. So that was, a lot of policemen involved, a lot. I remember, and good players, like, yeah. So that was, and I got these internationals, and I'm getting them all in Bucharest before we play Romania, running on the spot, counted to 10. You can see them going, oh my God. Which is surprising, really, that we all managed to do it quite comfortably. But that was another trip, which was very interesting.
So one bit of good news after the Six Nations, there was a worry that TNT was going to get the contract to do the Six Nations exclusively, which would have effectively put the Six Nations behind a paywall, which would have meant people couldn't watch rugby. And in Wales, people, as much as I like going to a pub to watch rugby, people have house parties and they'll have the family round and they'll watch, and they wouldn't be able to do that without paying for it. So also that in itself would have been bad. But one of the worst things for me was that Jonathan Davis, Jiffy, announced that it potentially would have been his last Six Nations this year as a commentator. Yeah. And I think Jonathan Davis, he was a world-class rugby player, Union League. Yeah. I think he's a world-class broadcaster. He's up there with me, second only to Bill McLaren as a broadcaster, as a commentator. It would have been. He just strikes me as somebody who would be world-class at anything he turned his mind to. Yeah, but buying rounds he's not. No, he's not world-class at that. But no, I was fortunate enough at Neath. When I first came to Neath, Jiffy was there. And you get a chance now on YouTube, all these old films. Because at the time, when you're in a game of rugby, you're not sort of, you're focusing on what you do and focusing on what your contribution is, right?
and what you can do next, and how good you can help the team. You don't notice a lot, right? But Jonathan was, so you get to look back, right? And players are players, like, oh, well done and all that stuff, but you don't really overly see what they do. And there's loads of good, like, quality players that I've played alongside in Neath that only when I look back on old games, when I obviously I think I was thinking they're really fast, but I realised I was just fast forwarding their best to get to me again. But no, Jiffy was exceptional, right, as a player, but you didn't think of it at the time. You just thought he was just one of the boys, player, and he was one of the boys. And I can kind of remember we played Newport, and Newport, good side, very good side, and they were putting us under pressure in the Knoll, and it was having a bit of a chat on the pitch. Somebody was down injured like that, and I think, or maybe even half time, I think the comment was, Jonathan, do you mind doing something so that we win the game? And I remember he put a kick through in our 22, we gathered it and went the length, then he put an up and under up, they couldn't catch it, and he scored, and 2 tries, and we win the game. An exceptional rugby player. I know, like, and pace. What he had was out and out pace. Played then. He went to Llanelli and then gave us a drub in when we played them in the cup final. He was again and with Wales, against Scotland when we had. He had a couple of drop goals and scored the try where he kicked through to himself, and against a scrum our scrum was getting absolutely annihilated at the time. Just something else, right? You get a chance to see him. Now, I was fortunate enough when I went to league. We're on the same team again in Warrington, right? Now, there's one kind of rule in Warrington in rugby league where if you get the ball, don't run across the pitch. If you start running across the pitch, the defence will mop you up and it'll keep you going. They won't tackle you, they'll just keep you going, and eventually they'll take you over the touchline, right? So I was running my normal across the pitch line, right? And this was just about outside the 22, Warrington in Wilderspool, the old stadium, and I'm getting shepherded. I am going into the stand, right? Because they've got me, there's about 3 or 4 of them, and they just march you in. But what I did just before I did that kind of calculated move where when I just went over the touchline, I went like that. Hey! I just threw it over my head, landed in Jonathan's hands, right? He stepped through their defence line, and they got a bobby, like a floater behind the line. It just burned him off. Full back in front of him, the last defender kicked the ball one way, he ran the other way, and scored. It was unbelievable, right? That way, and he gets the ball at the end and scores a try, right? One of the greatest tries. But that's when I realised that there is double standards, or if you're a superstar, and you get all the headlines, because no one ever spoke about that pass. Because without that pass, he's nothing.
He'd be nothing.
No, but just an exceptional rugby player, and just so quick. I went to Australia and everybody was rubbing their hands in rugby league, going, he's going to fail. Everybody's waiting for him to fail. And he was a huge success.
He wasn't a big guy physically for rugby league in particular.
No, like good lungs on him, good chest in, but what he had was just out and out pace and vision. He had all the skill set out of this world, and he's got to be. We talk about the tens over the years. He's up there. He is up there.
World-class player. I genuinely believed he would have been a world-class coach, because you could see his analysis, his commentary, apart from having the humour and just being great at that. I think he would have been an amazing coach. And it's quite a sad sort of situation why he didn't go into coaching. Obviously, he lost his wife. And then when he'd finished playing rugby, and so commentary, he's on record saying this was something that he could do on the weekend. Obviously, if you're coaching, we spoke in the previous episode, that is your life. You're not able to do it. So I think he was a massive loss to coaching in Welsh rugby. But coaching's loss was commentary's gain.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I mean, there's that, but we can assess what he has done, and what he has done has been exceptional. And I know it sounds a bit sort of licky bummy type of way, but he was that good. He was that good, you know. And I look back, and there's other players like Martin Morris play for Neath, you know, just a real. But when you look back, absolute quality. There's so many good players, you know. But people like Brian Williams, you know, John Davies, Kevin Phillips. These are people that, you know, we know they're good. But then there's other people that just sort of live life under the radar because you don't get a chance to see them. You know, Phil Pay was another one. Exceptional. Pontypool away in the cup, and it was a real tight game. Pontypool was strong in those days, and he pops out of a maul on halfway and sprints the length. He's been chased by a full set of backs, and no one's getting near him. Like, you know, so these are exceptional athletes as much as...
So that pack of the 80s and 90s, I was, sorry to say, a little boy watching sort of Neath at the time, and you forget sometimes, we had the likes of Jonathan in the back. So my heroes were always the forwards, Brian Williams in particular.
Yeah.
Martin and Floppy, you mentioned. Okay, maybe Roland Phillips. Mark Jones.
Did I mention him? No. Okay.
They were all the
Jones,
pack,
yeah.
and they were my idols. But when you look at that back line as well, you had Jonathan Davis, Scott Gibbs.
Yeah. Well, you had Colin Leahy, you had Alan Edmonds, Paul Thorburn, Carl Nyack, Chris Bridges came after, Sparky.
Best moustache in World Rugby.
Yeah, that was good. It was good, but so it wasn't. You know, we were fitter than most, if not all, teams, and we had Alan Roper, John Williams was there, he and his boys. Well, these are runners. So they weren't rugby coaches; they were actual athletes, and we were just fitter. But you know, you can always make a cake, and you always put a little bit of icing on it, but you've got to have that little cherry on the air, whatever it is. And people like Jonathan just had that extra bit of something that doesn't come around very often, you know.
So Ron Waldron was the coach of Wales at Neath at the time, and then he went on to coach Wales. And his sort of tenure there, I think a lot of people, like Neath were out and out the best team in Wales, perhaps Britain at the time.
Yeah.
Largely because of the fitness, as you say. And I heard at the time a lot of the players from Cardiff and other clubs in Wales struggled with the fitness. The fitness.
Well,
training.
if you look at what we were doing at Neath, right? We get there on a Tuesday. We used to go, when we first got there, we were playing like touch rugby out on the pitch. Like we always, you know, all the teams kind of do it. To within about a season, the first thing you did in training was 12 laps of the pitch on a Tuesday. On a Thursday, it'd be 8 laps of the pitch. That's the first thing you did. So no one's playing touch rugby now. Everybody's like, yeah. And then you'd go, after the 12 laps, you go into conditioning. And then you would go mad, flat out, pack against pack, just smashing into each other. And Ball would take the backs. And Brian Thomas would oversee it all. And, you know, that was the mentality. Now, it worked because, you know, like Brian had put together a squad that were fighters, were kind of, I'm not saying the other players weren't, but when you're going from maybe 2-lap warm-up, have a stretch in each corner, to 12 laps, it's going to be very hard for some seasoned internationals to change their mindset from where they were to that, you know, and I can understand it. But that was about 1990, I'd left then, but to league, but yeah, that was, you know, Ron Waldron was the most successful coach in Wales, you know, and rightly so, he became the Welsh head coach. But, you know, people would say, you know, the question is, you know, was he ready for that, or were they ready for him? You know, and
he's before his time, wasn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, so it would have been tough then, because it was, and it became fallout, and the boys in Neath then were protecting the philosophy, and the boys didn't like it, and it was just sort of, it just got, you know, it became what it did, you know. But, you know, I'm just saying from my point of view, I always respected, I was quite quiet in Neath, really. I just respected what we were doing. And you would say, if things weren't right, you'd go, right, we're having a 30 press-up situation, and next thing, everybody down. So you got people like, you know, Di Morgan, people Phil, these are
tough boys,
absolute rock hard. You know, and loads of us, Ghazi, You know, all these boys, and next thing they're down, they're doing press-ups. You know, when he says a 30 press situation, that's what we do it. We'd end up doing about 3,000 on the training night now, but that was the mentality of it at the time. And, you know, if there was a transition or if there was a different mindset, you know, the one thing Wales would have been is fit. You know, but unfortunately, I don't think he had. He went to Australia. They struggled out there, and I don't think he had enough opportunity or enough time then to be able to make those changes.
No, they absolutely pilloried him, didn't they, the press?
Yeah.
I remember that Neath being out and out the best team by a country mile, and I think he picked 6 Neath players. Because at the time, just before Ron came in, it was the big 5. So you'd have 5 selectors from all different parts of Wales. And then it went from being that to being the coach picks the team.
Yeah.
And he was the first one to do that. He picked 6 from the same club, who happened to be the best team in Wales at the time. And he had a lot of stick from that. Within a year, Alec Evans, the Cardiff coach, was there, putting 9 players in.
Yeah.
Warren Gatland, his first game, put was it 12 or 13 Ospreys players in. And that team at the time, I think, was it Turblanche was playing and Tommy Bowe, so he couldn't have put...
No,
couldn't have put 15
anymore.
out.
Yeah.
So
it was Martin Williams, and I can't remember, and I should know, but it was
Mark Jones on the wing.
Maybe it was two.
Or Sonny Parker.
No, he was.
He was Ospreys.
Yeah, but look, and you know, so perhaps when you look back at Ron's time, maybe then the mistake was he didn't put enough Neath players in.
Yeah.
You know,
probably.
compared to what other coaches done after that. I mean,
I'd like to point out actually that we had a quick drink before we came here, professionals that we are, in Neath Rugby Club, and Ronnie was there, still going strong.
Amazing.
Watching his son plays fiddle in the country band there. So it was lovely to see him.
I didn't want to make eye contact unless I'd have had a 30 press-up situation going on. So I did spot him there.
Well, if he watches this, he probably we both do doing press-ups.
Yeah, well,
get me doing a few sit-ups.
Well, you think he's fallen over and can't get up. Yeah. But look, that was but you know, going back to the original thing, the Jiffy thing. Yeah, he was, and you know what, right, and he'd spoke to Brian Thomas. You know, and the mentality at the time, you know, he was, you know, an exceptional player, as we said. And he said, "Oh, look, Cletley been in touch, and they're interested about getting me down there." And he said, "Okay," shook his hand and said, "Good luck." You know, and
there was definitely in that Neath team, nobody is bigger than the team, no matter how good, and he was world class. There's never any doubt in.
And then he brought then Paul Williams in from Newbridge, from that area, and. You know, I think he broke all records type of thing. He was incredible.
Adrian Davis as well running about that time. Some really good.
And Jason Ball.
Yeah.
You know, Glenn Ball's son. He was another one. You know, there was Chris Higgs. You know, there was a lot of quality. I mean, and it was kind of, you know, we ended up having 50 plus games a season. So first of all, you have a big squad, big-ish squad, not a huge squad, but enough to, you'd have to double up. So you may be on the bench on the weekend, play on the midweek, or play the both, whatever it was.
The rota system, and I know it's a thorny subject because you didn't play in this game. A lot of the players you mentioned did play against the All Blacks.
Hang on. You know what, right? I've been on right 10 years of therapy, and I've just sort of, life's great again, and
to bring
it up.
But that game where Neath did better than Wales against the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, Phil Pugh got picked on the back of that game for Wales, and
probably Gareth Llewellyn as well.
Yeah, and justifiably as well. He was, you know, like really tough, and you know, you had Martin Morris, Mark Jones, and Phil Pugh was the back row, and you know, Mark, you know, the setup for the try was virtually through the back row, and then the ruck on the right by the halfway, and then cross the line. Another one we haven't mentioned yet, who could be the best on them all, which is Alan Bateman.
Yeah,
he puts the pass into Alan Edmonds, and over he goes. And you know, that's the All Blacks, right? And that was their team. You know, that was their team. And for them to turn around afterwards and say in press, going, you know, oh, it'd be interesting to see what Neath would do if they won. Then you know that you've got under their skin.
Yeah.
You know, and But they were great. We had a night up in the Kimler Court Hotel at the time, and we had a great night, and with Gary Wetton, Alan Wetton, and obviously all the All Blacks. But we'd got under the skin.
Were you on the bench that day?
I was, the metal staircase coming out of the club, down from the top down. Yeah, I was standing up there watching the game. Yeah, just sort of arms crossed, tucked in everything that.
Were you on the replacements bench?
No.
But back in those days,
David Pickering, Di Pick was on the bench.
But in those days,
you could.
You could make a tactical substitution, or.
I'm not sure whether it was just injury off.
Right.
But it was a bigger complement of subs. It wasn't like when I started. It was two subs. Yeah. A forward and a back. I know. Years before that was no subs.
Only if there's an injury, you could bring him on.
Yeah, and Gary Tucker, the winger. I know he played. He said after one game, and he was a good player, right? Hurt his knee, and he's like, it's a bit sore, like, and usual thing. Magic sponge comes on, like type of thing. And carried on. Played about 6 games before they realised it's not getting any better. And he went in and got x-rayed, and he'd broken a bone in his leg. Like, like that. The mentality was, I've seen it there. That boys would be turning up on the bench, half cut, because you never get on unless somebody look at Mike Richards, the hooker, with Billy James for Wales. He was on the bench so many times, never got capped. Oh, there's a great player. He was a great player.
I played with Mike for Neath Athletic. I think he was a 50-year-old. I was in my late teens. And what a tough guy. And you'd pack down with him. As I'd be 18, 19, and then you'd have a similar age prop against me.
Yeah.
And they'd be calling, "Oh, you old cunt."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
you're like, I'm only 19.
No, don't go there, because
no,
hard as nails. As a 50-year-old, absolutely hard as nails.
I was
still playing rugby.
I can remember, exceptional. Like I can remember playing for Neath, and I can remember who we were playing against. Scrum, Brian Williams, Lucid, Mike Richards, hooker, and either Jeremy Pugh or John Davies on the tight ball. And in those days, it wasn't much play. He was just pass the ball, get to the wingers, and the wingers were good, right? And he went out to the wing, passed the ball inside, and I think he landed in, I think Lynn Jones got it. He passed it to me, right? I passed it to Brian Williams, who's come out to the scrum as a prop, and he passed it to Mike Richards and scores under the sticks. So you got, I'm going like mad to get to that sort of breakdown or opportunity, that attack, and behind me, right up behind me, is Brian Williams, the looser prop, and behind him is that's a different mentality. I remember I played up in Orrell. Always remember it because I remember going into the clubhouse. And I was like, we weren't like sponsored by like water companies and stuff like that. I was like going to the clubhouse trying to get some water, and I saw Mike Richards by the bar just having a brandy before the game. Like I'm like what's going on, like, but just a little brandy just together, take the edge away, and he was good. I really rated him. I really enjoyed.
He never got capped. It was on the bench all those times. So Warren Gatland, again in that sort of era, he was on the bench 50 times for New Zealand. Sean Fitzpatrick would not go off, even for 2 minutes at the end of one game, just to go on, give him a cap. Yeah. That's that sort of lack of sentimentality.
Yeah, and Billy James is the same. And as a player, I fully understand it, because you don't want to take the risk of giving somebody the shirt.
Yeah, we might take it off you.
Yeah, the opportunity. So you've worked hard to get the shirt, you're going to keep it, and so I get that. And don't be wrong, if we were doing it in Wales, and New Zealand were definitely going to be doing it, weren't they? Because they are ruthless.
So we jump around a bit. We're not, it'll surprise viewers, that structured in what we do. No. So back on to Jiffy. So we talked about him as a player, as a broadcaster. As I mentioned earlier, I think he's great at that. He's enjoyable to listen to, and you were part of his broadcasting sort of career on the Jonathan Show for quite a while. Any sort of memories of him as a broadcaster?
Yeah, look, I I did enjoy it. I remember, like, I'd just come back to Neath at the time, and they were on about the format for a new program and stuff like that, and Jonathan had suggested me as this whatever character to play, right? And so we did a pilot, and it went okay, I guess. And then obviously the show was up and running, and and I did enjoy it. I used to get nervous about it because it's going into something that you're not used to. And at the time it was me. Jiffy was obviously his show, the Jonathan show. Nigel, myself, and Larry Sean. And that was the team, and it was good there because you had, out of all them, Larry Sean was the experienced presenter. Jiffy was comfortable doing what he was doing, which basically was reading, and Nigel was, he'd been on Nos on Lawen, so if they were going to boo him, he would been used to it. Nigel was playing his role, and it worked out really well, especially with the referee, and we were having a few games on there, and he could, and then my role at the back was probably just to kill my reputation of anything, just to ruin my career. That was my job, and I did. But over the years then, as I was sort of, I think it was on for about six years or something like that, things, it started to change, as far as, I'd be sitting there and Nigel would say something with an innuendo in it without realising it, and I'd be like sort of just standing there going, just look at camera and go, just eyes. And even that then it wasn't, we were trying to have a bit of fun, but at the time it was fine, we were having a bit of, and then doing challenges and stuff like that. But so I did enjoy it. Once I left, I had to leave because I went to Italy to coach in 2010. So I had to leave the show then because they tried it a couple of times, sending a camera crew out there. But if you're not actually in the studio, it doesn't get the same feel, and you can't go like that from Italy because you don't know what they're saying. But no, it was good. Then we had. Alex Jones was on, and so Nigel, Jiffy became one of the best broadcasters, as you mentioned. Nigel became the #1 ref in the world. I know that because he told me himself. And Larry's now on BBC Radio Wales. Alex Jones is on The One Show.
And you're here doing this.
And I'm... and my days... Here I am. No. And I'm happy doing this, of course. And then... with Sarah Elgan now, and she's all over the rugby broadcasting world. So
Elgan Reese's daughter.
Yeah, another. Do you know what? Right, I can remember he was the superstar when I first came to Neath.
He's the first superstar as a Neath. My grandfather did my job now, running the social club at Neath, and when he was the first sort of god that I was aware of. Yeah. Sarah's a brilliant broadcaster as well, which is not just his daughter. But that Elgin, to me, he was captain of Neath. The first memory I have of Neath Rugby Club, and he was outstanding. And I ended up, when I played for the Welsh rugby league team, that was coached by Clive Griffiths. Right. And Clive had, I don't know how many caps he had. I know his debut was against England, and he will never forgive Elgin because Clive hit an unbelievable line, right? As from full back, bang, straight through like that, and the cover came across. He put a perfect kick over the top. And as he was sprinting, just as he was about to dive on it, Elgin came in and dived on it. He was rapid, wasn't he?
Yeah, oh my God. No, and not only that, just he was captain when I first arrived, but just the personality, he's just a kind person, really. I mean, a nice person. And, you'd think in the time, you're now, excuse me, you're now looking at bringing farmers in from West Wales and the miners coming down from Severn and Crynant. and the captain is Elgin, who was doing. So that was like the bit more of the normality, the little bit of normality we had in this crazy squad we had going there. Do you mean? But talking about the Jonathan show, right? I did enjoy it. And you get more relaxed, and we're doing sketches and stuff like that, right? But the one of the things that, like the spin-off, not the spin-off, but one of the opportunities I had on the back of it was I had an opportunity to go on an episode of Pobl Cwm. And I've got to just cough. Anyway, not a joke, cough. And I had to go on Pobl Cwm. And it was, because like you see it on telly, and it's like the shop and this and that and the road. And when you actually go on set, and it's just like a frontage, it's like I couldn't get my head around it. I was right. I couldn't get into the part, right? But the
it was yourself.
That's what I mean. The mad
you
thing was
couldn't get the part, even though it was yourself.
That was the mad thing about it. Because they wanted me to tell a joke. I'm invited to come Derry RFC as their guest speaker in the club dinner. So I'm like, they sent me a joke, like just say, like whatever, just something, because the idea of it is I'm going to start telling it, and then they're going to fade away and go to another conversation over there. And I'm like, no, that joke's not good enough. Like, no, I would never say that. And I just couldn't get my head around the fact that, and do you know what, right? About, 12 years later, I watched it. No, I knew it was bad. And I tell you one thing, it's going to have to go as anybody doing acting or performance, that's got to go as an example of
what not to do.
What definitely not to do. It was, oh my God, it was so cringy, like. And Ellery was on there as well. We were on the same episodes, and she was okay, like, but I was like, oh my God. And I was like sort of looking around, like, it's just to the camera crew and maybe some of the actors who weren't involved, just to get a bit of confidence, and they're like, like, I know. So, but there we are. And funny enough, I was only ever in one episode. But no, I've been on Pobl Cwm,
Claim to fame.
I am proud of it, because it's the biggest Welsh-speaking soap in the world.
My fathers and never forget about sideburns and side steps and all that before. Now this is your time, boys, it's your turn to score. Sing